intricate, convoluted, and sometimes tortuous to some INFJs. The life of being one of the rarest and most misunderstood personality types is not an easy one. While every type has their strengths and challenges, the life of an INFJ comes with unique trials and tribulations that most people wouldn't ever be able to handle. Welcome back, Psychos. Before we get into it, we'd love it if you liked and subscribed to our channel, as well as to click the post notification bell so you never miss a video. Alright, let's get right into it, starting with number 1. Their contradicting nature. INFJs are confusing, and it doesn't take long for the average onlooker to figure that out. In fact, rooted in their combination of intense ideas and open-mindedness, some of the INFJ's viewpoints and belief systems can come across as relatively contradicting in nature. Some examples of this seemingly hypocritical nature is their all-or-nothing attitude towards life, their craving for human connection being versus their need for introversion, their longing for vast life experiences versus their habit of staying stuck inside their own heads, their ability to come off as cold-hearted despite their extreme empathy, and the way they care about their looks but despise superficiality. However, regardless of the INFJ's perplexed and contradictory nature, they do have a method to their madness. So, while some people find this complex personality type as an oddball in their own way, maybe experiencing a day in their reality would actually give some clarity to their contradicting ideas. Number 2. Being the outcast of society. Through the primal and inherent need to fit within our surroundings as humans, it's fair to say that being born into the outcast personality type is rather difficult to navigate. The INFJ, for example, knows firsthand the challenges and emotional battles that come with living on the fringes of society. In fact, this lone wolf type usually doesn't have a choice when it comes to taking the road less traveled, because they don't feel comfortable conforming to the norms in the first place. However, despite it being a personal choice in some regards, most people would much rather choose to remain on the beaten path of socializing, hierarchy, and obedience for the ease and direction that it entails. With that being said, the average person would certainly find difficulty when stepping into the INFJ's shoes, especially when experiencing the unspoken rejection and discomfort that follows. Number 3. The intensity behind their empathetic gifts. Most INFJs know what it's like to give second chances, not to mention third, fourth, and fifth chances. In fact, if there's one weakness of this empathetic type, it would be not knowing when to set the necessary boundaries around their caring and hopeful nature towards other people's behavior. However, for the INFJ themselves, as time goes on, it's not so difficult to know when they at least should be setting the boundary and decide not to. If another person were to take on this INFJ reality, however, the need to provide their support and the overwhelming desire to give others the benefit of the doubt could certainly become overwhelming for the average person, mostly because the majority of empathy-requiring situations make the INFJ feel as if they have no choice. Besides their naturally big hearts, their secondary function, extroverted feeling, makes it so they can't not take the emotions out of the opposing party, making parting ways and putting up the walls around their empathetic gifts nearly impossible. Which brings us to our next point. Number 4. Feeling so deeply. Speaking of the INFJ's extroverted feeling function, this particular function causes the INFJ to not only wear their heart on their sleeves, but also makes it difficult to connect to their own emotions sometimes. They can't stand any sort of disharmony within their immediate connections, and when they can sense a slight disruption, they can become seriously overwhelmed. This can be in regards to the connection itself or how their close friend, family member, or partner is feeling in the moment. While most people don't take on these minor inconveniences and changes in energy so passionately, the INFJ takes it upon themselves to fix the situation. Through their emotional counseling and the reluctant need to get to the bottom of their sense disturbance, INFJs can end up feeling rather exhausted. And while this is something that the INFJ has gotten used to over the course of their childhood and adolescence, people with other personality types could easily spiral into feelings of anxiousness or depression. To feel so deeply is one of the INFJ's greatest gifts and would serve to be quite the eye-opening experience for others to experience. However, it can also become a significant obstacle, even for the INFJ themselves. Number 5. Thinking so deeply. If there's one thing that dives deeper than the feelings and emotions INFJs absorb through other people, it would be their profound, philosophical views on the world. Giving this introspective type the aura of intensity and mystery, INFJs are continuously asking themselves the self-reflective questions that others are too afraid to ask. They are constantly wondering who they really are and what their position in this world is. They question what worries them about the future, what their fear is holding them back from, what matters most in their life, what can I do to take better care of my physical body, and the list goes on. Aside from these types of questions that would certainly make the average person feel rather uncomfortable to face, INFJs also ask the life questions that exist on a grander and less personal scale. Things like why we are all here on this floating rock in the first place, whether or not emotions are simply chemicals passing through the brain or something more, whether or not technology is more harmful than helpful, and even the less important ponderings such as whether or not plants feel pain. With this deep critical thinking habit, most people would go through an existential crisis of sorts, unable to decipher where their beliefs lie. Number 6. They struggle to stay present. They say that the ability to remain present is the key to happiness. With past-focused thoughts being the root of depressive patterns and future-focused thoughts being the trigger for anxiousness, it's believed that intentional presence in everyday life is where we feel the most fulfilled. And while some personality types have an easier time remaining in the present moment, for the thought-focused INFJ, this concept can feel almost impossible at times. While they usually have a steady control over where their introverted intuitive imagination takes them, it's almost always thinking about either the past or more often, the future. They can't help but to use their present moment time to either ponder on recent experiences or to think of their upcoming goals, ideas, and possibilities. In fact, even when they are seemingly present within a situation, especially when meeting new people in a social setting, the INFJ can easily be distracted by their deep observation tendencies. Instead of focusing on the topic of conversation within a social gathering, they can't help but to tune into every minuscule detail, including tone of the conversation, the way people talk, their body language, and even the energy in the room, which would certainly be difficult to keep up with for the average person. And lastly, number 7, they are never sure of themselves. Speaking of the INFJ's difficulty with staying in the present moment, they also have a hard time making clear and assured decisions. Since this personality type can predict multiple future outcomes through their psychic-like cognitive patterns, even the simplest of decisions can seem like a break or break scenario. Every decision comes with multiple spin-off questions that can make the decision-making process extremely overwhelming, even for the INFJ themselves. For example, instead of the INFJ simply choosing an item off the menu that they'd enjoy, they may instead stare at the menu while they question every associated repercussion and benefit of what they'll eat. They may question whether or not they should get something that's better for their health, whether they should get something that is slightly larger in case they won't get the time to eat in a while, or whether they should get something more snack-sized so that they have an appetite for later. They may even question if they could make the same thing at home for less money, or whether they should just get the same thing they always get as a safe option. The worst part of it all is that when they finally decide and are enjoying their meal, they'll more than likely question whether or not they should have gotten something else. Well, psychos, that's it for today. So, do you think other people could handle spending a day in your mind as an INFJ? Let us know in the comments below. Also, make sure to leave us a like, share with your friends, and also subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a video.